Okay. La, 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 la. Good morning, everybody. I think I've done this long enough to know that my mic is working, to know that a few of you are already here, and to be able to feel comfortable enough to get it rolling. Um, you know, the last week has not been a very easy one, even though one has tried to find as much distractions as possible. Uh, but the week is what the week is, and Nigeria is what Nigeria is. So let's start service this morning with the week that was. In the week that was, 46 students. And when we say students, we minimize the problem. 39 children aged from 2 upward. 7 teachers, one of whom, of course, have now been killed, Mr. Michael Oyedoku. They still remain with the terrorists in the week that was. I live in Lagos. I don't know what the weather condition in the forests of Oyo and Kwara may be like, but it rained practically all through the week that was. And each time I heard the crack of thunder or see the rain falling torrentially, if I may add, I remember the children in captivity. I've waited, 21 years to see Arsenal win the Premiership. I could barely take any pleasure out of that because what's football compared to human life? But life must continue, right? So we try to utilize ourselves so that we don't remember that 39 children, one is 2 years old, they're, they're with terrorists. And we all carried on like it's just another day in paradise. We've become so used to. I remember I went to Abuja the day after the Nyanya bombing. I wrote a piece on it. I believe is in Do Not Die in Their War, where I recalled what I found when I got to Abuja. The complete normalcy of the federal secretariat that I visited, it reflects the kind of normalcy we've also evolved for dealing with our reality. So in the week that was, they had Ojude Oba. Oh yeah, that was Ojude Oba, full of steez and everything. Even Sheyi Tinubu managed to turn up at Ojude Oba. We slaughtered rams. All of us went about our merry businesses. 39 children are in the forest. But we've become used to this. It's normal. It's our reality. Life must continue. So in the week that was, we acted like we're normal, even though the evidence would suggest that we're all lunatics and insane people. Yeah. And then in the week that was, I was forced to listen to the asinine argument, foolish, extremely foolish argument of those who are looking to push the responsibility for rescuing these children onto the governor of the state, Sheyi Makinde. Let me be very clear. I don't know what his failings are. And like I said, in the week that was, every time in this segment, when I speak about an issue that happened in that week, I'm only doing so that I might be able to offer us a window into the sickness that has overtaken us. So in the week that was, I listened and read supposedly educated and reasonable human beings arguing about the failure of Sheyi Makinde to rescue these children. And I'm wondering, does Sheyi Makinde command a single man with automatic weapon in Nigeria? The answer is no. The federal government has the capacity, and it is the sole state actor with the capacity to do the needful. So this argument that will seek to deflect and place the burden for rescuing these children on Sheyi Makinde is stupid and self-defeating. And it is actually very, very annoying in the extreme, and it needs to stop. Sheyi Makinde, I'm sure, has his multiple failings. Focus on that. I'm not his spokesperson and I am not speaking for him. But when it comes to the subject of rescuing the children who are trapped with the terrorists, the duty falls solely on the federal government of Nigeria. When this is done, you can go back and do the postmortem and talk about whatever failings you deem right to ascribe to the executive governor of the state, who in theory is the chief security officer of the state. You can deal with that later. But where we are now, at this point, stop insulting your own intelligence with these arguments about how Sheyi Makinde. Please, I'm not going to allow myself to be distracted by that. In the week that was, Mrs. Grace Ogunleye, Ilejemeje local government vice chairman, that's in Ekiti, staged her own kidnapping. The real reason I'm speaking about this is to let you see how kidnapping has become a business. The vice chairman of the local government couldn't find a better way to get money out of the local government other than to stage her own kidnapping. In the week that was, all right, you want the linkage. One of the senior special assistants to the governor of Katsina State was arrested and said to have been involved in the kidnapping for ransom and banditry going on in the state. These are persons within the corridors of power. One feigns victimhood, one is a victimizer, or if the police are to be believed, that is what they are. So allegedly, this is Nigeria. Those who should protect the people are complicit. And we're talking about the base level. We're not even dealing with what is happening within the federal government itself and the security agencies. Explain it to me. Make it make sense. Oh, yes, in the week that was, a general was kidnapped. Yeah, in Katsina, I believe. So maybe now, Bayo Ononuga and his national security advisor counterpart will remember the phone number of the terrorists that he has owned up that they can reach and that they have reached in the past. Maybe now they'll call them, since the army has told us through many of his spokespersons, and I'm told this person used to be a spokesperson for the army as well. The terrorists are our brothers. We will continue to rehabilitate them after we have de-radicalized them. And yes, The de-radicalized terrorists will be better treated than their victims. The radicalized terrorists are living large, but their victims in IDP camps are further victimized by those who are meant to take care of them. That is the madness we have built in the beautiful country we've been blessed with. In the week that was, the Seriki Fulani of Ijebu Ode was arrested with one of his children. The bags used to deliver ransom money was found in his kitchen. I'm speaking to this because of those who have disingenuously argued that when we speak about the criminality of a Fulani person, we're speaking as bygones or we're looking to label an entire ethnicity. Seriki Fulani, the child that made them go to his house, had just been released because he was convicted for kidnapping. He came out of prison and resumed his business. But it would appear that his family business now, because two of his brothers took off with him. The father, who saw he knew nothing about it, it was in his kitchen. So this would look like a family business. And then you can begin to extrapolate because every time somebody has been picked up for kidnapping, except you're talking about Evans, who's been in prison for some time now, they're Fulanis. Once it's organized, I was on this program. That was sometime in October, towards the end of October, yeah. It was my father-in-law's first year anniversary, memorial anniversary, I should say. And I was on this program, and a friend was phoning me. He was with Fulani kidnappers in the forest of Ijebu. He'd been with them for like a week. So when I saw the number, I knew it was the one. They were beating him. When they couldn't reach me, they had to phone my wife's number. She was in church in Ibadan. She had to pick it up because she knew he was in prison. I was chilled enough not to pick it up. He came out of the experience describing his Fulani kidnappers. This has become a recurrent decimal. So when we speak about the criminality of the Fulani, it's because we are talking about a culture that has tolerated this evil and found itself complicit. Because instead of condemnation of this evil, they found the grace to excuse, explain, and thereby normalize it. The Fulani is as much a victim of this banditry as every other Nigerian. But it is in admission to this evil that we can find a way out of it. In the week that was, the NDC and other political parties had their primaries. And I saw what happened to quite a few people who came out believing that they have something or the other to contribute. I saw how the system rallied to reject them because a lot of professional politicians found their way into the NDC, which is the property of politicians anyway. And just as I was trying to wrap my brains around how any political party would turn down the opportunity to have an Aisha Yusuf, Zari, and all the other progressives who had come out intending to run, how they would ignore to have those persons on their ticket and have the grace to bring on the kind of people that the Labour Party took on in the last election cycle. And I watched my revolutionary friends presenting Doris Ogala as gubernatorial candidate in Abia. So I looked at the incongruity of the Nigerian political system and I just shook my head. But detachment is a luxury we cannot afford. I merely pointed out so that you see the incongruity. We'll deal with it when we come to the body of my lecture this morning. It's now 10 o'clock. So if you're just joining us at the advertised time of 10 o'clock, you're welcome. My name remains Dele Farutimi. And just like I said in a picture I posted this week, may the man I am not be a reproach to the boy that I was. Ọlọ́run nípa ọkàn yín dà sáìdá o. That is a prayer that says that may God not let us become a reproach to ourselves. Amen to that. So this morning, I have picked for myself the subject, looking back to look forward. Now, I could have picked any number of topics to describe what I have in mind to discuss with you this morning. But every time I have pondered the issues I want us to more, I have found a Yoruba proverb constantly coming into my consciousness. And what does it say? The Yoruba says that Bíwájú ò bá ṣe é lọ, ẹ̀yìn á sì ṣe é padà sí. If you don't know how to go forward, you must, if you don't know where you are going, you must know where you are coming from. You must always know where you are coming from, even if you don't know where you're going. I remember that in speaking, concluding last week, I told you that we'll be talking about the new constitution this week. I haven't forgotten, and we'll get there. But it is critical that I lay the theoretical foundation for the argument that I'm seeking that we have today. There was a philosopher known as Seneca, and I have found parallels between the thoughts of sentient beings across civilizations. The Yorubas evolved the proverb I just gave you. And Seneca said something that more or less says the same, at least when you dig deep. He said, if a man knows not which port he sails, no wind is favorable. If you don't know the port to which you are sailing, no wind is favorable to you. The wind will just blow because you had no idea of where you're going. So even if you set your sail, you'll just be drifting aimlessly at sea. I said, look back to look forward. When you're looking back, what you're doing is that you're taking stock. You're determining just how far you have traveled with an understanding of where you're coming from. It is where you're coming from that measures the success or failure of your trajectory. But where you're coming from is also suggestive of the idea that you knew where you were going when you departed from where you came from. So this is the issue I want us to look at. There is a lady, Ella Wheeler Wilcox. She was a 19th century writer. One of the things she said, which perhaps explains what Seneca had said much earlier on, is that one ship, I'm quoting her now, this is one ship drives east and another drives west with the very same winds that blows. It is the set of the sails and not the gales which sets in the way to go. So the wind is blowing, and as it's blowing, One ship sets its sail and goes east. Another sets its sail and goes west. The very same winds, not separate winds. It is the way they set their sail that determine the direction of travel, not the gale. Had nothing to do with the way the wind is blowing. It is the way they have set their sail. Now, what is the relevance of all this to us as Nigerians looking back in order to look forward? There are a series of interviews and public interventions I gave some years ago. There is a particularly poignant one because it speaks to the issue today. And I was asked and I explained to my interviewer. I said 1,000 delivery to me cannot change Nigeria. I then proceeded to say I believe in the same interview that there are foundational documents, agreements that governs Nigeria, and that unless we went back to this foundational agreement, Nigeria will only continue to drift. Now, you want to look forward, but you are compelled to look back. Because if we don't look back, we will not know at what point we missed the road. If we are talking about missing the road, it is suggestive of an agreed destination that has now been missed. So how do we look back? We look back by going into our history. Now, the purpose of looking back is to offer justification for the future that I am suggesting that we should now begin to press towards. This is just so that we remain in control of the argument and have a clear understanding of where we're going. Because without clarity as to the basis of the argument, we will lose track. I'm not speaking to titillate you. I'm not a content creator. I am looking to synergize a revolution in Nigeria, and it is a peaceful one. What is a revolution? It means turn around, a turn around. So if I said look back to look forward, I am saying in order for you to understand the need for the course correction that must be done, there is a need for you to understand where we're coming from. Nigeria is the British creation. We've spoken to this multiple times. But by the time the British had to pretend that they were leaving, they had to find some way to create the Nigerian state that they have created. And to do that, they sought to get the endorsement of the people who are going to belong to the state that they were creating, which was already named Nigeria. So in doing this, the peoples, and I'm using the word peoples deliberately because there are multiple ethnic nationalities that are trapped within the space called Nigeria. Those peoples were gathered together on multiple occasions in different years over the course of the British rulership of Nigeria. What happened was that between 1946 and 1951, at least 10 different conferences were held where ideas for the governance of Nigeria by those named Nigerians, the way they will be governed, agreements were reached. Let us be clear about something. A federal state known as Nigeria was far from contemplation in 1946 when the Richards Constitution, I believe, was promulgated. Nigeria was being ruled, obviously, using indirect rule, but reflexive, of course, of the way England itself or Britain itself was dealt with. What they are doing or what they did was to create a centralized government where each region, minimally independent of the central government, but reporting to the governor general, this could not be passed on to the Africans. They had to evolve a way for the Africans to be responsible for this. Azikiwe wanted a unitary system. Ahmadu Bello wanted nothing to do with it. Obafemi Awolowo proposed the federal system. It was a middle of the road solution to the two extremes. Azikiwe wanted unitary, but Ahmadu Bello wanted nothing to do with that and would rather have the North go on his own. Obafemi Awolowo proposed, okay, why don't we have a federation? Let the North rule the North, the East rule the East, the West rule the West, and we come together for common issues like defense, like currency. Over time, it wasn't so cut and dry, but that is not the purpose of our mourning, is not to deal with the nitty-gritty of the arguments, the different places where they had conferences, how Awolowo mobilized both the minorities in the East and the minorities in the North to the Lancaster House conferences to prove that there are multiple ethnicities trapped in the different regions, and that it would be best to have a parliamentary democracy because it will best deal with the differences and allow the people to develop at each other's pace without the pressure of centralized authority. It was in this milieu that you then had the Western region and the Eastern region opening consular offices in the UK, whilst the North opened its own embassy in Khartoum, because that was what was relevant to its need. It was in these that you had all kinds of developmental rivalries developing between the regions. The British were still here superintending things. All these different experimentations led eventually to the creation of a Nigerian state at independence. There are three regions found on parliamentary democracy and fiscal federalism. This was the basis for the creation of the Nigerian state. In the absence of this, Nigeria would never have been. The persons who call themselves the founding fathers of Nigeria were not unaware of the multiple differences of the Nigerian nationalities, but they agreed that the easiest way to have unity in our diversity was to have a federation with clear delineation of powers between the region and the federal government. By 1962, an additional region was created. That additional region was created following the dictates of the 1960 Independence Constitution. It created the Midwestern region. A plebiscite was held in the place that was excised out of the Western region and created as the Midwestern region. Economic survey was held. A two-third majority vote was passed in the Western Regional Assembly. A two-third majority was passed in the Federal House of Representatives. A fourth region was created in 1962, gazetted in the 1963 Republican Constitution. I am explaining all of this so that we have clear understanding of how far we have departed from the beginning of our moves. 1966, we had the January coup, and then you had the counter coup in July. and then the civil war that came out of all of these fractures. My purpose is not to give you an history lesson, but Yoruba says, if you do not know where you are coming from, if you are where you are going, you must know where you are coming from. I need us to understand where we're coming from so that we have clear understanding and reference for me explaining that we are lost. And if we are lost, we have the duty to figure out our way out of this mess. And we are indeed lost. So in 1967, the Civil War started. It's said to keep Nigeria one. That Civil War lasted years. Many died. But during the war, the military who are taking over the governance of Nigeria, and I must remind you, these are men in their late 20s and early 30s. I believe Gowon became head of state maybe at 31 or 32. I'm not 100% certain now, but that was how young he was. These are the same people who will tell you today that you must be greater tomorrow. This is the same country today where the national youth leader of our political parties are usually persons in their 40s, 50s, sometimes 60s. Men in their 20s and 30s, not trained for statecraft, not understanding of the nuances and sometimes understanding them, but believing that now that they are the ones in power, power must be used to shape the agenda. They started the restructuring of Nigeria. So the Nigeria that was gained that independence is by far radically different from the Nigeria we have today. At no point during the restructuring of Nigeria from 1966 till date, think about it, 1966 till date, 60 years, Nigeria has been radically restructured without the will of the Nigerian people being involved. Military bandits, people like Obasanjo, Babangida, those are the people who restructured Nigeria. The Nigeria that was negotiated over years. The Nigeria that worked for all of 6 years before it was killed. They began its restructuring without involving the will of those they call citizens. Willful restructuring. No care in the world what the people want or what the people think. And in most cases, manipulated the people into accepting evil. Today, without consulting anyone, we have 36 states in Nigeria today. The federal judiciary, or rather a federalized judiciary, has been unitarized. And today, you have a situation where every judicial appointment carries federal imprimatur. That is the state that we have built today. The rights of those who are called citizens have been removed. That is the Nigeria that we have built. The Nigerian has become a victim in his own country, functionally. And that is the Nigeria that we have built. The military restructured Nigeria. And in restructuring it, the will of the Nigerian people was completely uninvolved. And this is where I come to the point of my lecture. We've looked back. It is now time to look forward. I said in reminding you of where we are, I said, 1,000 daily faro to me cannot change Nigeria. I even went on to say that if you increase my brain power by a factor of 100, it will make no difference. That is a recognition of the fact that systems rule or ruin states. The way the Nigerian state is currently structured is completely incapable of delivering anything of value to the Nigerian people. So if we must restructure it, that is looking forward now. What must we do? We have to go back to a federal system. We need to restructure our country to reduce the number of states to six. This is what is proposed in the constitution that I have made available for all of you to scrutinize, agree with, disagree with, so that instead of arguing religion, ethnicities, we can start arguing issues. The one thing almost every Nigerian is agreed on is the fact that Nigeria is incapable of continuing in the fashion that it has. So if we must now look forward in the understanding that we have derailed, we must understand that there is already a calcified opinion that recognizes six geopolitical zones. It is these six geopolitical zones that I am proposing that we broadly make regions. That these regions should have the same powers that the regions of old had. We've set out these kind of powers in the document. I can spoon feed it to you. Feel free, go to dailyfarotimi.com, download it. It is available there. At a minimum, download it so that you have an understanding of the argument. And you can come back and we can then have these arguments back and forth. You can propose what you think is better than the one that we have proposed. We do not have a monopoly of wisdom. But it doesn't begin and end with restructuring to six regions. There are also provisions in that constitution as proposed that sets up a truth commission which deals with issue of corruption. Those who have stolen us blind to this point, they must vomit what they have stolen. It is not enough to simply change those in the seats of power. Power must become anchored to responsibility, and those who have been given the powers of the state must account. It is as I said in my last broadcast, if you are asking for the people to trust you, pay their taxes, you must be willing to account. You can't demand that people to whom you owe no responsibility give you the power of the purse as has been done over time. The Nigerian is entitled to an account, and that account must be demanded of those who have ruled. And then going forward, the country must be yoked to the rule of law. There are multiple provisions, but the most important thing that we must all understand is that it is not beyond our capacities as human beings to imagine a better way than the one that we have taken thus far. It is not beyond our capacity as human beings to look at where we are, understand that this is not sustainable. Let's use a case in point. If Nigeria is truly a federation, truly a federation, then explain to me how come the governor of a state, or in this case, does not have command of a force capable of engaging with the terrorists who has overtaken his state. I remember multiple times I've spoken with you and I've brought to your attention the impotence of the Amotekun forces. I drew your attention multiple times to what General Togun had to say about the restraints that were placed on his capacity to train the Amotekun force in Oyo State, how they were denied tactical training, and how they were refused permission to bear automatic weapons. The same state, I'm talking about the federal state now, that was incapable of securing the lives of Oyo State people was also the one that prevented the state from acquiring the capacity to confront the security challenges. In what federation known to you in the world does this happen? We're in a federation, but the governor of a federating unit is denied the capacity to protect the people who live within the territorial boundaries of the state. But the same federal government, this time under Bulaba, because remember that the Togun issue was under Buhari, but it's the same APC. The same APC-led government in Lagos State was the only holdout of all the Western states when they were founding the Amotekun force. But today, conveniently, you find idiots turning around to blame the governor of the state for the impotence that has been created by the federal government that deliberately refused to allow them to kit, arm, and train for what has befallen them today. So you have a situation today where we must tell ourselves the truth. Nigeria is not working. It's not working at any level, and anyone who has half a brain needs to admit this to themselves and then look for a way forward. Looking for a way forward, given the tangent of just how much we've lost our way, it means that there is nothing else that can save Nigeria aside from a revolution. We have to turn around. We are that far off track that without a complete turnaround, this country will die. It is already bleeding from 1,000 cuts. How many more school children can we afford to have taken into the bush? How many more vice chairmen of local councils would be faking their own kidnap? How many more senior special assistants will be found complicit in the kidnapping overtaking their states? How many more evil has to overtake this country before we all realize the existential danger that we are faced with? Let me remind you, because we have tolerated this evil, in this same Nigeria, with due process of the unjust laws that we have managed to normalize, because of the multiple standards that we have built in a place that is meant to be governed by law, having only one standard. There are men in prison today solely because they protest against the evil that we have normalized. But there are people walking free because the system would rather tolerate them than have their voices heard. In some cases, they've been killed simply because the system have no space for their lives. In the country we have built, there are no citizens. Everybody is a victim in the state that we have built. El-Rufai is a veritable prince of the Nigerian ruling class, a card-carrying member, platinum card-carrying member of the Nigerian ruling class. He has been afforded all the advantages of the Nigerian state. Multiple times, he had held public office, minister, name it. Nasir El-Rufai has been it in Nigeria. But today, the Nigerian state is showing him that he is not a citizen. They've given him bail, but on conditions that he can never fulfill. How is the chairman of the traditional rulers council in Katsina, in Kaduna State, going to ever go against the wish of the state governor and give him a recommendation? Which level 17 officer is going to stand shorty for him? The federal under Bulaba. Point I'm making is this. If they will do that to their own, what do you think they will do to me? What have they done to me that you don't know? If we don't look back, it becomes difficult to look forward. My purpose is clear, and I understand the impatience of some of you who would wonder, when are we going to get moving? But understand this. The most difficult thing to do is to build the foundation for any structure that we endure. That is the most difficult thing to do. I am building this a block at a time so that it might last long beyond me. And it cannot be about me. It has to be about all of us. It has to be about us. And if it has to be about us, it's got to be done right. So you keep pardoning me. The one that I've given you to do, deal with it first. Let's start the conversation on that constitution. I'm going to make a phone number available in June, either by next week or the week after. I don't understand the technicalities, but I'll get my technical people involved so that we can phone in and have an interactive session where we deal with the issue of the Constitution. Because what I'm trying to do is to get you behind it so that this becomes the basis of our mobilization. If I mobilize you behind a person drops, the mobilization is dead. But if I mobilize you behind ideas, a person drops, another person will carry the ideas forward. That is the totality of the idea here. We must be able to build consensus found on ideas. And it is those ideas we must, it's not partisan. If we all agree that this is the way forward, it becomes easy to force this way forward on political actors. So let's proceed from that basis. I would like to close by reminding of us of what Ella Wheeler Wilcox said, just to further explain what Seneca was saying. He said, one ship drives east and another drives west, with the very same winds that blows. It is the set of the sails and not the gales which sets us the way to go. If we continue lamenting, and there is a lot to lament about when you objectively evaluate our reality. But if we continued lamenting without clarity as to the way forward, all we will do is spend our lives in lamentation. We would have gained nothing. So I'm saying to all of us, I have already thrown the challenge at you. You have the draft constitution, and it is the encapsulation of the ideas behind which I'm looking to mobilize you. Go to dailyfarotv.com, download it, engage with it. Let's have your opinions. Let's move beyond the mundane and begin to discuss a path forward. 2027, let it play the way it will play. Let it play the way it will play. Get involved as best as you can. But keep your eyes on the ball, regardless of who wins in 2027, if there is an election. My position does not change. That was why I said at the beginning in reminding you of what I said years back. 1,000 daily faro to me cannot change Nigeria. It requires a change of the system before Nigeria may be changed. If you're truly interested in changing the Nigerian system, you will understand that the constitution of any country is the basis of its direction. The constitution of Nigeria today is a fraud, and that is why the country has been moving in perverse fashion. We are governed by a fraud. If we are not going to find ourselves further emerged in the mess typified by what you are seeing in Oyo State today and all over Nigeria, let us be clear. We have to demand a change of direction. I do not presume a monopoly of wisdom, but I believe that we have set out a compendium of ideas to propel us. That draft constitution is at least 8 years old. But every day we look at it, we find something or the other we may tweak. I'll tell you one, for instance. In the very preamble to that constitution that had survived 8 years without revision until last week, we described ethnicities as tribes. Tribes. That's a derogation of ethnicity. So we corrected ourselves, we amended it. So we're not suggesting that there will not be things that you would find objectionable that we may consider together and find reason to amend. But we're saying after 8 years of making those proposals, the core of the argument remains unanswered and the problem has persisted because this is about a system. It was never ever at any point about persons. Change the occupiers of the offices. If you do not address the systemic problem, the problem multiplies. Every time you have a new president, you find yourself with new problems with the hold unresolved. And that is why Buhari was meant to be a solution to the problems that Jonathan was meant to represent. Buhari became the problem. Nobody voted Bulaba, at least not in the numbers claimed by Mahmoud, that has now kept him in office. But a new president, we must say he was. He came, he has worsened our conditions. With every change, something worse has happened. I think it has come to that point where we need to tell ourselves the farcical gyration that is called Nigerian growth needs to stop. We are not growing in the direction that sane and rational beings ought to grow. We are growing perversely, and the country is becoming increasingly unbearable. If we are not going to become sitting ducks, it will be because we moved as one. And we must move as one with clarity as to the direction of travel. Please engage with the draft constitution. I will work. I don't think it should be too difficult to have a dedicated line connected to a YouTube channel so that we can have these conversations going forward. But there is a need to understand we must build a movement of ideas, and that movement of ideas must have sufficient capacity to affect the trajectory of the Nigerian state. The salt may not be more than a spoon, but it flavors a whole pot of soup. We don't have to be many to be useful. We just have to be clear about where we're going. That is the importance of Seneca's quote and Ella Wilcox's clarification. We must have clarity. That is why I seek to provide. You don't have to agree. You may very well disagree, but it is in the synthesis of our multiple ideas that we find the synergy to move forward, because we've looked back. Where we are is not palatable. we need to move forward with clarity. Thank you very much for your time. I'm deeply appreciative of the time you spent with me. Um, come rain, come shine, between 8 to 10,000 of you listen to this. I know it takes time, but I must ask more of you. Get involved. It's not enough to just find yourself titillated by me droning on and on. I do enjoy the sound of my voice, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is to get you to move, to get you to act. You don't act your own now. When? The last set it up. You don't act your own one day, of course, you must die. That's the only thing that is certain. But before you die, let me tell you something, and I'll close with that. I may even repeat this. In fact, I've said it multiple times. You are never going to become as rich as Dangote. I know I won't. Nobody is going to ever know me for any great invention. I'm no scientist. But Nigeria offers the opportunity for greatness. The pantheon of heroes is practically empty. Practically. Not only have they killed off all the heroes, they made sure they are not remembered. And that is where you come in. Think about it. You're not going to live forever, but you can gain immortality for dying for the truth. Why don't you just insist on the right thing and be prepared to die for it? You get into the pantheon of heroes, especially if enough of us are committed to this cause. Just be unyielding in telling the truth and on insisting on what is right. Unyielding. Do not allow yourself to be derailed by ethnicity or by religion or by personal interest. Then you find yourself a hero. History will remember you. May not remember you for being as rich as Dangote, but it will remember you for being one of those who built a citadel for which a black race may be proud. Nigeria has all the potential, every potential to galvanize the United States of Africa. I know some of you will be thinking of how to balkanize it, and that's also fine. You can have independence within. Nigeria is supposedly independent within Africa, isn't it? That's the level of regulatory freedom that happens in spaces ruled by law. That's what we should be aspiring to. So enjoy the rest of your week and have a blessed week. God bless you all. In spending your week, spare a thought for the 39 children who are in the terrorist den. Spare them a thought. 6 teachers. Remember the family of Mr. Michael Oyedoku. Remember them in your prayers. It is well with you all. God bless.